Hello out there in Twitch. How are we doing today? Happy Valentine's Day. I'm sure there's nowhere else you'd rather be than spending it with me, talking about AWS, talking about security today. My name is James Spencer. I am a partner solutions architect here at AWS and one of your hosts on Howdy Partner. What is Howdy Partner? It's a good question. It's a show I do every week, and I still ask that question. Anyway, Howdy Partner is our weekly show we do on the AWS Twitch channel where we bring some of our partners on that have been vetted and validated in the partner network. And they come and show us the awesome things that they have done, the awesome things that they have built, and actually just kind of push us beyond like the marketing and the white papers, the blogs, actually kind of get us hands-on and, we get to see what it looks like, what things do from the people that have actually built it and are working on it currently. So, my co-host this week, she's a long time. She was actually probably one of the first people I ever co-hosted with back last January. I would love to bring on Sarah Aamir. She can tell us a little bit about herself, because she can do it better than I can, obviously. Sarah, how are you doing today? Happy Valentine's Day.
Same to you, and happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Hello. Howdy, and myself, yes, Sarah Aamir, as my wonderful peer James mentioned, and let me mention that it's always wonderful to hosting with you, like previous time, first time, and looking forward for more. I'm the partner solutions architect, everyone, for AWS, and my specialty is in generative AI technology, and I also, as a side hustle, let's say, I help my partners onboarding for marketplace as well. So in this. Let me set a tone about our special guests today. Is in this or today's era of business, the reliance on our SaaS products, the services, and all these applications is vital. It's very vital for enhancing the productivity and seamless collaboration across the organizations, right? But there is a point: is the overexposure of the sensitive data can be at huge risk. And so here is where our wonderful partner DoControl comes into the picture, as they provide a unified, automated, and risk awareness for the SaaS security platform (SSP), in which they are securing the business critical applications, their data, and also by partnering with DoControl, you can reduce that risk, prevent data breaches, and mitigate those insider threats, which we all are very much vulnerable towards, without slowing down your business enablement simultaneously. So without further ado, I think, what do you say, James? Should I bring the folks on, or you wanted to put more thoughts about how are we going to be spending our Valentine's today, talking about security?
I know I can't think of a more romantic way to do this than talk security. I've heard that security is job zero. Does that mean that it's like not important at all, something like that, or is that like zero comes before one? So
0 comes before 1. Yep, absolutely. And what a wonderful day to show your loved ones more security. So talking about that, let me not delay our special guests and partners today from DoControl, Omri Weinberg as the co-founder, and Matt Dubreuil, our strategic alliance manager. Welcome.
Hello. How are you guys doing today?
Hey guys, thanks for having us. Hey James, hey Sarah, happy Valentine's. My little contribution to the Valentine's is like the pink logo. I didn't have a red one, but pink it is. So
works.
Nice.
I hope it works.
Absolutely, it rocks.
Hey James, hey Sarah, happy Valentine's Day. Thanks for having us. We're excited for this.
Yeah,
love to.
For sure. So I don't know who we want to start. Let's start with Matt. Tell us a little about yourself. Where are you, first of all? Where are you located?
Yeah, good question. So I'm in Boston. I'm on the East Coast. It's very cold out. It's very cold out today. So classic East Coast weather. But I've been on the East Coast for pretty much my whole life now. Prior to DoControl, I've worked in the security space for a good amount of time. I worked at Rapid7 and Mimecast, so some pretty big security players. Prior to DoControl, and then started at DoControl about 2 years ago. And I've really been focused on kind of growing our partnership with AWS and how do we really co-sell and co-build with AWS going forward.
Nice, cool. And Omri, how are you doing? Where are you at? We're all across the globe here, or at least the United States.
Before where I'm at is, my name is Omri, and it's a very weird name for a lot of people out there, but Omri is an Israeli name. I moved here to the States like 10 years ago. I moved directly from Israel to New York, where it was very cold to me, and I was trying to move south. It took me a year and a year and a year to convince my wife, but after 7 years, I managed to make it happen, and now I'm not far from Miami in the last 2 years.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
it's pretty warm down here, and the ocean is beautiful today.
Nice.
Very nice. Nice. And in chat, let us know where you're from. Let us know where you're hanging out with us from. I'm in Seattle. It's not too bad actually today, surprisingly. But yeah, let us know where you're from. Let us know some things you want. If you have any questions during today, go ahead and drop them in chat. We'll make sure to get to them. I promise I'll try not to babble too much. I don't want to take away too much from our guests. So with that, whoever we're starting with first, Matt or Omri, what is DoControl? What is? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I can take this one. Let me just tell you a little bit about the backstory, how it all started. Why DoControl? Why the name DoControl? And so basically it all started like 3-something years ago, give or take, just before the pandemic. I was working in a company that acquired my previous company, and Adam, my partner, he was working in Google. And we both, we were living in the city, friends, wives are friends, we were hanging out. And we both started to share with each other the frustration that we have in work when it comes to the business enablement and the productivity. And the main reason for that was like the security teams or the IT teams that, they stopped us or did, from what we are trying to do. Adam, basically, he used to work on a secret product to compete with another product by one of the Google's competitors. And every now and then, the team came to him and said, "Hey, Adam, did you remove permission to this and that and this and that?" And everything was so manual and so tedious, and he wanted to do something else. What happened with me is I represented my previous company in January of 2020 in Japan, actually. And the company shared with me a bunch of sensitive documents through email, right? I opened those documents in my mobile device. And what happened is I had my personal email set as default. So I couldn't access those assets, right? Those files. But naturally, I just requested access, and the other side saw my name, Omri Weinberg. And they said, we know this guy. He's a legit dude. We can trust him, right? I don't think they even knew what they were doing. And they just granted me access, and I still have access to that. But that was for my personal email. And then we said, okay, I don't want to say that we had a kind of an alignment, but we said something is off here, How can it be that those sophisticated companies are doing those such mistakes or are preventing from business to grow and do things faster? We should find alternatives. And we were living back in New York back then, and we started to chat with our friends, like first circle, second circles, with CTOs and CIOs and CISOs about how are they controlling and how are they, overseeing what's happening in SaaS application. How are they monitoring this activity in SaaS? And a lot of them were telling us about CASBs and DLPs. And I haven't found a single person till today, and I'm not going to name names, but that gave compliments to those tools. And if you think about it, most of those tools were built like 15 years ago, even more. And a lot of change in those last 15 years, right? Think about the technology. Think about how people are doing their work, especially post-pandemic.
Yes, indeed.
People are working from home, bringing their own device, freelancers, contractors. It's a mess, right? On one hand, for security and IT. But on the other hand, for productivity and flexibility, this is no-brainer. People can really push business to the limit. And they, instead of being stuck in traffic, they can have more leisure time and can be more productive in some ways at home by using all of those SaaS applications in order to do their job in a good way. So putting 1 + 1 together, we said we got to do something around it. So fast forward, we raised closely to $50 million. Insight Partners is our last backers, basically. We got funding from CrowdStrike. I'm sure you know CrowdStrike. I don't know if you saw their Super Bowl ad like last week.
Yeah.
But CrowdStrike is invested in the company 3 times already, and also using our software, which is another testament of what we do. But long story short, we are supporting some of the top brands that you can possibly think of, and from hedge funds to cybersecurity companies to retail to financials, insurance, EDU, and so and so. And the commonality that they all have, they use SaaS application to drive the business. And what they're lacking is visibility to who has access to the data in SaaS. And the second thing is how to remediate or remove the access when it's not needed anymore. Because if you think about it, once you share something, no one goes back in time and say, hey, let's remove the access to this contractor that I used to work with and I share a bunch of sensitive stuff. It's not happening. And if you think about it even more, what is SaaS? What is a SaaS asset, right? We are talking in this platform today, StreamYard, but there's Zoom that, you can do recording of board meetings, sessions, and it can be publicly available. It can be externally available. It can be available without any passcode to the entire company. And maybe you have some sensitive stuff in it. And that's Zoom. You can have a product roadmap in your Google Drive for 2024 and 2025. Very sensitive stuff. You want to keep it close to you. You don't want to be, you don't want it to travel the world and people have access to from all different domains. So that's Google. What about repositories in GitHub? What about encryption files that developers are uploading to Slack? Tickets that are being opened in Jira. Just see what I just mentioned, like different SaaS environments, different digital assets, a lot of intellectual property, sensitive stuff. It's very, very hard to manage and control and to understand what is happening in my company. So this is what we do basically. We connect to those SaaS applications. We give full visibility to your inventory, to your digital assets. We map the exposure, externally available, publicly available, internally, anyone with a link inside the company. And we have a way to remediate the access in a very easy way. We have patents basically written on it. I have actually one of the patents is here. Maybe it's there, yeah. And the main thing is we have workflows that can empower the users. Because if you're at 1,000 employees company or 10,000, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter if you have 50 IT security folks in your department or 100. They'll never know why employee number 10,000 have just done this act, right? So we have a way to interact with the users and say to them, hey, Sarah, hey, James, are you sure you want to do that? Through Slack, through email, through Teams. So we empower the users to do their job, take responsibility, give consent for their action so they can drive the ship faster without stopping them and opening tickets and blocking them and stopping them from doing their work, basically.
Nice. I originally thought that you were going to go with, when you were talking about getting access permissions from your personal account, that you were going to say, yeah, I asked for permissions with my personal account. And all of a sudden, the next morning, I had an email from someone questioning, excuse me, why are you doing this? That's where I thought you were going with that, but I'm glad it kind of turned out a little different.
If that was the case, so the world would be much better and more safe, right? But that's not the case, because people, in most cases, they don't even understand the action that they are taking, right? All of the breaches or the exposure that we are seeing on a day-to-day basis, it's like people are just doing honest mistakes. They don't even understand the consequences. And we are here not just to tell them, stop, don't do anything wrong, whatever. We are trying to educate them. We're trying to enable them in order to avoid those mistakes. Because at the end of the day, if there is an employee in the company that would like to leak data or steal data, it doesn't matter if you're going to have like 10,000 security vendors in the world. They'll find a way. They'll find a way.
Somebody has the intentions. I was about to say that it will be hard to stop. Honest mistakes are more common. Where I agree with you 100%.
Exactly. And we see that, which is like 80 or maybe even more % of the time, are honest mistakes that people just don't understand their actions. Yeah. And if you think about it, people come, people go, you hire, you fire. It's a never-ending cycle of like your employee count, that you always need to refresh their memory and their actions about what needs to be done or what cannot be done. And we do it in a very automatic and very non-intrusive way.
Nice.
That's awesome. Cool. So with that, so what have been some of your like biggest successes so far? I know you mentioned a lot of those big names. CrowdStrike's a huge one. My work laptop uses CrowdStrike for God's sake. Like, so, I don't know, Matt, maybe you know a little bit more, can tell us a little about some of those.
Yeah. So I think we've had, there's obviously some big customer successes. Some of those companies like CrowdStrike or like a Databricks and Datadog are huge partners of ours. But also from a partner side, we've also had huge success just working with AWS and building on AWS, I think. We started our AWS partnership around 6-7 months ago from a co-sell perspective, but we're actually 100% built on AWS. So our product is fully built and enabled on AWS, and we can dive into the details from if anyone's interested in what services we're particularly using with AWS. But from the success side, we've seen, as Omri said, real great success, especially in those cloud native, cloud first companies who were born kind of using SaaS. So if you were started 10, 12 years ago and, you started your company, you got Salesforce, you got, OneDrive or Google Drive, and now 10 years later, you're 5,000 employees doing millions and hundreds of millions in ARR, but you have data everywhere because you grew so fast and you have no idea how to control it. Those are the type of companies we see huge success with because one, they are scaling very quickly and they need to find easy to implement solutions that are easy to manage and very cost effective, which DoControl can provide. And I think second to that, as I said, they have an absurd amount of data that is extremely hard to manage and control. And they're still kind of building their security program. They're only 10, 12, 15-year-old companies. I mean, you can only grow your programs to be so scalable and so mature at some point when you're only that age of a company. But you seem like a very mature company because you have $800 million in ARR and you have whatever 10,000 employees. But you still are working with the foundational security programs to build up. And DoControl is one of those often quick wins you can implement to really start securing your SaaS data when it's something that you may have not really thought about early on in your kind of your security process.
Cool. You mentioned some of you're all. Since it's an AWS channel, I have to do this. You mentioned that it's all built on AWS and a lot of the services you're using. Do you mind just telling us some of those that you're using or how you're using them?
So there's really two services we are. There's a lot of services we're using, but like two are kind of called the foundational bread and butter of what DoControl is built on. So as Omri said, we're API enabled integrations. So we have API webhooks that are pulling from the different SaaS integrations. So in essence, we're able to get real time event logs happening within these SaaS applications. In essence, we're using EventBridge to help connect the dots between the event logs and then how we're leveraging those event logs later in the platform. When we use EventBridge, then we use step functions to actually enable all of our workflow functionality. So step functions is really the foundational, I would say the core foundational of our product, which is the workflow automation and the remediation, which is where, the product really starts to drive ROI. So from a product standpoint, those are really the two foundational aspects that DoControl is built on. We're built on a lot of other parts of AWS, but those are the two that really drive the product for the most part.
Yeah.
We would love to see the walkthrough of the beautiful diagram also, if you have it available.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah.
I don't have it handy right now, but actually,
okay.
Serverless stuff is great. Yeah.
So in the meanwhile, I think Omri, you were referring to the certificate or something authentication in the background, but I'm sorry to say that the another colorful wall is something which is very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about it?
To be honest, that has nothing to do with SaaS. That's only about traveling. I have a habit that I think when I started to travel with my wife, like maybe 12 years ago, even 13 years ago, everywhere where we went together, we bought like a magnet, whether if it's like a country or like a specific attraction, a unique attraction. So I think like I have like a few grand here on the world just for magnets. So maybe one day if I need it, maybe the price will go up. But that's a good it's a good good memories. You can
Great
look at magnets from anywhere from Singapore to China to Netherlands to Bora Bora to Zanzibar. It's all over the world. So it's nice memories. To be
That's a
honest,
lovely collection. Yeah, it's wonderful. It seems a lot. That seems like you have traveled half of the world.
try to. We really enjoy that. Now with the kids, it's a little bit harder,
It's harder.
but it's not preventing us, right? So we are doing it, but maybe more moderate.
Yeah, so if you want to quickly view, and so this is an APM blog post we recently did with one of our customers called Box Media, and we can link this in the chat. I don't know if James are able to put it in the chat where people can start to get a little better understanding of some of our key use cases. But we do have a snapshot here of our architecture with AWS. So you can see to the left here, we integrate with the different SaaS providers. So whether that be a Google Drive, a Salesforce, a Jira, we have all these out-of-the-box API integrations with all these different SaaS platforms. We then use Amazon Gateway to get that webhook pull point so we can pull those event logs into DoControl. Once we get them into DoControl, you can see here we use a Lambda function and then use EventBridge to really start to, let's say, centralize those event logs into a normalized way. Centralizing those event logs into a normalized way allows us to then be able to build our workflow and alerting functionality on top of that, so we can give you the threat detection and the exposure analysis you need to make decisions on what your exposure looks like. You can see down here, and I like to always highlight this, step functions is really kind of the bread and butter of the platform. This is where the remediation layer comes in, of being able to build your security policies at scale right within DoControl, within the DoControl platform. And we'll get into it a little bit later, kind of seeing a workflow in action and how a workflow would work within DoControl. But high level, this is really kind of how DoControl is built on top of AWS.
Hey, Matt, can you drop that, copy the link in the private chat? Then I can put it up for everyone else.
Yeah, no problem.
I was like linking blogs and stuff like that. Cool.
Yeah, this is a great overview of a customer story, which is always a joint customer with AWS, which is always good, but also really going into pretty granular detail on the key use cases, but also how were you leveraging AWS to support those use cases for our different customers.
No, I think it's pretty well done and well scripted as well with the diagram and everything. It's worth sharing, definitely, for anybody to have more details and clarifications. Please do.
And in that blog, actually, you can read more about like the use cases that we help. In this example is Vox Media, 3,000 employee company that they needed to help better visibility and control around their exposure in SaaS. And they couldn't find a good solution or like traditional solution that could help them. And this is why we started the conversation with them. And happily, we are able to really we were able to show the value from day one. And that was a very quick deal. And, now 3 months, a few months after, or even more than that, we reduced their exposure dramatically by hundreds and hundreds of thousand assets that outsiders had access to. But with our automation, with our bulk remediation capabilities, we were able to revoke that dramatically without too many hours involved from their side. So everything is automatically, and that's the power of DoControl basically. And it's not just we clean up the history, but we also maintain that for the future with automation. So you make sure that you have like a steady state of exposure constantly, and if you have any kind of anomalies or something is breaking the fence, we are there to fix it constantly.
And you mentioned, Omri, real time, because I think I do remember I saw Amazon Kinesis, which is the mechanism of service for live streaming and analytical tools. So I think everything from that stream is getting sitting or moved to DynamoDB. I saw that icon also on so that's how you're doing in real time?
Yeah, everything is in real time. It's near real time. It's like, it depends, like milliseconds or seconds away, obviously, because our entire technology is agentless, basically. So we're not installed on the device. We're not intercept the traffic, but everything that we do is like milliseconds away, that we can react to unlimited events that are coming in and really take action on all of them, from various SaaS application to thousands and tens of thousands of users per company.
So if it's serverless, what mechanism is it in the background? Is it on a pod, or even beyond that, even less than that, like completely serverless?
It's completely serverless.
Very nice.
Step
Okay.
functions.
Yeah, step
That's
Running those step functions.
Yeah.
And I think something that makes us different than maybe some of the other, if people are familiar with other kind of API based CASBs, is the push versus pull based architecture. In essence, we're reacting to the SaaS event. So when a SaaS event happens, then if you do control, we're making a decision based off a alert, a workflow, or a policy, whatever you have in place. As a pull based architecture is saying, it's still API enabled, it's API integrated, but what it's doing, it's reading the SaaS every, let's say, 2, 3, 4 hours, scanning for the changes in that SaaS application. So let's say, great, I scan that application now, and then I scan it 2 hours later, and it's trying to find the delta of what happened, which is one way to solve for the problem. But if someone shares that file that, let's say, 2024 executive comp plan to their personal email, and you find out 3 hours later and they've already left the company, and then at that point, you've lost your ability to actually make a remediation action. So that's where DoControl also differs from maybe some of the other API CASBs that are in the space, is we're able to have that push-based architecture, and as Omri said, near real time identify risk.
I see. So not only identifying, Matt, you are trying. Is it more of a preventive or proactive approach as well?
Yeah. So we have 3 layers into the product. One is the inventory and the posture. So giving you, let's say, reporting and out of the box understanding and visibility into what your exposure is. The second feature is we have something called out of the box alerts. So alerts are really automated using ML threat detection. We're using keyword machine learning to be able to tell you what if risky actions happening within your business. So sharing, as I said, a overexposed executive comp report to a personal email, or something that contains PII that's shared publicly, we can we pretty much automatically detect that without any policies needing to be set up. And the third layer is, and there's kind of 2 parts to the third layer, is remediation. So there's something we call like quick actions or bulk remediation, is be able to say, hey, I just want to filter on all my files that are publicly exposed to a Gmail account or externally exposed to a Gmail account. I want to right now remove access to those. So you can do that, put a filter in, remove access. Or you can, the second piece is build in your scalable security policies, which is the workflow functionality to say, every time a public document is shared that contains PII, I want to alert the user and also alert the manager, and then build an approval process in place. And if it's not approved, then remove access. If it is approved, then allow access, but alert the security team for precautionary reasons, whatever that may be. So there's kind of 3, and I call it part 3 is kind of 2 layers of remediation parts of the product. But to answer your initial question, yes, we do have alert functionality, which is really our out of the box way to identify threats within the company.
Yeah, because I would like to reiterate or rephrase it. The most unique and wonderful part of this I love about is not only preventive measures, but it does remove the access. I'm going to emphasize more on that part. That, look, if you can tell me and James, being an employee, okay, don't share this, but it can happen. Honest mistake, right? Not intentional, maybe. So the way
Maybe.
you are trying to, I had to say that, right? You never know. So the way what DoControl is using this technology in that way is that even though if I did went ahead and shared it, right? Let's admit, fine. Then the access would automatically will be removed, which you were not, which the file was not supposed to be shared, in easy words, right? And that's how this preventive or proactive aspect comes into it. Then the mitigation or remediation comes, yes, once the damage is done, how you can do that. But even before that, there is another top layer which is also going to take access away, because once the file is shared, once the email is sent, even if I realize I cannot do anything about that, right? But the access would be removed. Is that how it works? I just wanted to clarify it for our audience that this is
I'll answer that. Yeah, that's correct. That's how it works, and it works faster than the other side will have access to it. So if you share something with a third party, until he will get and open that file and try to mess with that, DoControl will already revoke that access if there is a need for that.
Great.
But the beauty part is not just revoking access automatically. I'll give you an example. We have a client that we're sending like 80,000 requests every month to their end users. Hey, user number 1, you just shared this. Are you sure you want to do that? User number 2, user number 3, they have like 8,000 employees. We send them constantly about their action because they want to have like an environment that is collaboratively and not in a restricted environment. So basically what we see with them that 70% of the users are actually interacting with our bot, and they say yes and they say no to their action. And out of those 70%, 7 times more users are rejecting their actions because they've done a mistake, right? And even if we still have 30% that are not interacting with our bot, we can have like we can throw it to like DoControl hands basically to decide whether if like to cut it completely or allow it. We can have like another way if no one is answering the do bot basically.
Okay, that's good. That you should have that control. That's nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think maybe we can show some real time examples. So share and just to instead of talking about how do we do those nice things, but to actually show some of the visuals that will make more sense.
Yeah, let me pull up my screen. We'll go through kind of specific use cases to try to help frame the conversation. Let me blow this up. All right, so here's an example, and we'll kind of do a little walkthrough here, so it's pretty easy to understand and focus on of that kind of quick actions bulk remediation I was talking about. So being able to quickly identify a segment of digital assets that you see as risky and be able to quickly, make a decision on how you want to remediate them. So let's say you integrated DoControl, you can see our posture page here. So giving you a high level overview of what your exposure is across your organization. So public assets, external assets, internal links, giving you that high level understanding of what's happening. And this will happen, pretty quickly as you start to integrate the SaaS applications with DoControl. You can see here within this organization, this is obviously some dummy data. There's 150K assets shared with external collaborators, which means, me as Matt maybe shared something directly with James, who does not have a DoControl.io domain in his email, but it's not necessarily publicly shared. So it's not shared publicly with the world, but I directly shared it with you. So think about third-party contractors, fourth-party contractors, maybe customers, partners, prospects, people that you're working with. These are the type of people that you're probably sharing a file directly with outside your organization. You can click next here. And if I click on that link, it's going to let me drill in. So it's going to let me drill into that inventory of those 150,000 assets. It's going to auto create that filter for me of the last viewed. And that filter is going to allow me to say, all right, I want to take a quick action. So I want to make an action. I want to automatically highlight all of these files and remediate them. So if I hit that quick action button, it's going to allow me to give 2 options. It's going to give me an assessment, and then it's going to tell me what was remediated. So great, I remediated 93 Google Drive assets automatically.
Wonderful.
Boom, done. And you can see the exposure. It will basically then show up on your posture page of what's been remediated. So that's like a very easy, quick win for a lot of our prospects and customers, where you don't have to build in like a full-blown workflow just to solve for something that you can see right in front of your eyes. And you're like, I don't want to necessarily build a policy around this. I just want to fix this now. You can just drill into your inventory and automatically remove access to that. In essence, a couple clicks of the button.
So this is, I would say, in other words, if somebody or if our audience are going to ask, like, what does it look like to onboard DoControl, the SaaS program, right? This is how it is, because you made it sound like really clean, crisp, and easy. That how you retrieved all those remediation accounts, right?
Yeah. So onboarding DoControl, the process is, as you said, fairly seamless. And we're going to identify the SaaS applications you have, the core use cases you're trying to solve for. So whether that be, as I said, maybe Google public exposure, maybe Slack data loss prevention, whatever that may be. We'll integrate your SaaS applications. We'll give some time for the platform to start to populate your data so we can start to understand your exposure. That will give you that kind of posture page visibility into what's happening. And then from there, we'll work hands-on with you to make sure you can start to build your use cases within the platform. So that be, your specific workflows or specific alerts that you want to have triggered, things like that. We'll be pretty hands-on with you. So we usually run about a 2 to 3 week POC with the client to make sure they get really comfortable, hands-on with the product. And then from there, that's when, we go down the purchasing path and hand it over to the customer success team. But usually 2 weeks is more than enough time for someone to get everything integrated, have a couple workflows set up so they can get the look and feel and really start to get the value out of DoControl.
I see. So it's going to be like a whole 2 week time, but I think let's just once they have it all set it up, this is what they have to do, setting up the profiles with the walkthrough, and then would be able to retrieve that account or amount.
Exactly. So in essence, we integrate based off the admin credentials of that SaaS application. So as long as you have admin credentials to those SaaS apps, then we can start pulling those event logs through the API.
Yeah, API, that's another very good factor I would like to repeat. As API, everybody wants that technology, whether it's API based, easier. So that's another great addition for you on that.
Hey Matt, when it's doing the discovery, that initial onboarding discovery for you, how much of it is automated? Like when it discovers stuff, if it can't figure out hey, is this something we need to, lock down, or is this something that, we could just throw away? What does that kind of look like? Is there any manual steps after the initial discovery, or does that make sense?
Ask it again, just to make sure I can answer it in a...
Yeah. So you have your, as you said, as long as you have the admin credentials for those SaaS applications, and it wants to identify all those assets, like you said, it identifies the assets, and then does it automatically kind of say, okay, this is something that needs to be locked down, or sometimes will it come back and say, I don't know what to do with these assets, are these important or not? What is there any kind of step for that?
I can answer that, Matt. Basically, what we do when we do the discovery, if you think about it, a company that is 5 years old, or 10 years old, or even 15 years old, it doesn't really matter to us. We do the discovery from inception, and that's something which is unique. We build the entire inventory of this company. So maybe they had different rules 10 years ago, and now they have, and 5 years ago, they changed the rules or whatever. And in those time frame, you always can find gaps about their exposure. So we do that once we connect to DoControl. We do the inventory build up from inception. When we build up the inventory, we give sensitivity model. We have a sensitivity model to every asset that they possess. Basically, we can also accept their labeling if they have labeling system from their Microsoft or Google. It doesn't really matter. We can accept that, right? And then for every asset, they can easily filter down. Show me the assets that are publicly exposed. Show me the app files that are, or the whatever that are exposed that have high sensitivity. Mm-hmm. Show me the ones that have high sensitivity that were exposed by users that are not longer working in the company anymore. Show me assets that are exposed today that are being accessed by personal emails or by personal emails for employees that used to work in the company. So we have all of that, all of that data, and we just do all the matching on our hand for what happened prior to DoControl. Moving forward to the future, because of our architecture and the event-based, model that we have, every event that is coming from those SaaS applications, think about in Google, hundreds of events, Zoom, Slack, GitHub, hundreds of events, multiplied by hundreds or thousands of users. We capture all of those events in a push way. Basically, if James or Sarah, you just download something, we're going to know about it. You just do something, we're going to know about it. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to get that data, right? And we're going to normalize it, because the event that is coming from Zoom is a very different event that is coming from GitHub or Slack or Google or SharePoint. So we have all of those events. We normalize that. And then on top of that, we give business context. How? We're connecting to your HR system. And you say, hey, from Workday, we see that Sarah is about to let go. Not real, not just just an example. We connect to your Okta and we say, hey, James is from the finance guy. I don't know if from the finance team. And then we took those events and we match it, and we bring business context to it. We add the sensitivity model, and then it's a whole different ballgame about the output that we can give our clients, about what's important and what's not important. Because now, in most DLP players out there today, what's happening, they are scanning your entire environment, which is legit. But they speed up a report and say, hey, you have 10 gazillion files with PIIs in it. And then you do like this. What do you do with it? What do you do with this information? Unlike DoControl, we do that just in time. If something is leaving your company through one of the SaaS application and it has sensitive information in it, we'll let you know about it. We'll be able to revoke it. We'll be able to scan it. We'll be able to bring the business context. And that's the uniqueness about DoControl.
And not only that, from the leaving factor, but if somebody's transferred into a different department, now maybe like James doesn't need finance, access anymore. Maybe he's into another one, right? More on the technology other side. So that also comes in handy, right?
Yeah, so it's like joiners, movers, leavers, people are moving on, and at the end of the day, you don't cut the cord because he still had access. So maybe you're deprovisioning it from specific groups or whatever, but sometimes he still has access to the data that was created or someone that added him. It has nothing to do with the actual SaaS application itself. And the funny thing is, we see that with people that are leaving the company. Think about it. We see that all the time, that someone is about to leave the company, and then the security IT teams, what they do basically, they deprovision them from Okta, right? So they don't have access to the app anymore. But everything that they've done a second or a millisecond before, and they share stuff with their own personal Gmail account, whatever, remains as is.
Remains as is, yes.
It's still at it, and then we see things that someone is. We have a client in the financial category and says, how come we see this user accessing our data? He's not longer working here for the last 2 years.
Oh wow.
We told them, look, that's what the data. It is logging in to the access to the data with his own personal email that he shared like 2 years ago. And this is like a file that is being updated, and people are working on it constantly, and he has access to it because he shared it with his own personal email.
Oh wow. See, so would you call it a factor of the example earlier, Omri, you were giving that other companies or orgs or solution designers would give all that gazillion files of data, but what you are doing it, just managing it more efficiently. Because I agree with you 100%, 1000%. When that kind of an amount of data is even given to a person of significant title or leadership role, it's hard to digest, right? Honestly. But if you're giving it more specific, okay, this particular list of person, like a company turnaround, which happens, right? Everywhere. Yep. So then it's more meaningful. Okay, now it brings more value from the business perspective. These people are leaving or transitioning, something like that. Now it's more important.
Yeah, so, but just a clarification to what you said is, we don't like the word managing. And it's not like because we don't like it. We don't believe that's the right approach for security teams, because in most cases, security teams and IT personas are being cut. They need to do more with less people. And then you have more, solution and technologies they need to protect. There are more threats and so on. And so we believe in automation, right? We surface all of the data. We give all the right, and we try to be as deterministic as possible. We don't want to have like false positive, a lot of gray areas. We want to be deterministic as possible about our findings. And usually in most cases, we have like 100 templates or 100 use cases that we can help companies solve today. And they don't need to start with all of those 100. Start with one. Start with two, 3, and move on and build it inside your day-to-day activity in your company, in your workflows, in your operation, and so on. Because there are very simple stuff that you can set rules that on one hand makes a lot of sense, and on the other hand does not hurt the business. if someone is sharing stuff with his own personal email, maybe it's legit. Maybe it's his own wedding card that he's planning, whatever. Okay. So we don't need to do anything about it. But if someone's sharing something with his personal email and we see that it's from finance and the metadata of the file is P&L or revenue projections, red flag, right?
Yeah.
This is where we'll come in. This is where we'll step in and say, hey, are you sure you want to do that? And we'll open a ticket, we'll send an alert, whatever. This is basic stuff. If someone is doing excessive downloads, in like 20, 30 downloads in the last hour, and this guy have never downloaded anything in his life, maybe you should think about it, right? If someone is sharing with domain, personal or not personal, and a business domain, that no one in the company has shared before, ever,
100%, yes.
Maybe that should raise a flag. Hey, do you trust this vendor? Are you sure you want to share with him? He said, yes. Okay, let's give it 90 days. After 90 days, we'll come back to you. Do you still need access to this vendor? Yes or no? Maybe no, because you just ended the contract with them. So why do you need the access? So again, no one goes. So those are just 3 easy examples that companies can be up and running tomorrow in 5 minutes, and we can reduce their exposure, have better guardrails, and most importantly, it will not hurt the business enablement because we're not stopping them from doing their work. We're just putting the right guardrails. I call it it's like a living organism, right? Because maybe with finance, you need to be more strict. Maybe with sales, you need to be more flexible, right? Maybe with executive, you need to be more hands-on, because usually they are the most problematic ones, right? They just, they don't even know most of the consequences that they are doing because they deal with a lot of sensitive stuff, and they just share across the board constantly, board recordings and board presentation and roadmaps and financials and so on with like friends and investors and angels investors, personal emails, and all of those personal emails, they know in most cases they are most likely to be hacked. They don't have 2FA, account compromising, ransomware. This is where the troubles are starting from. Right?
Would you consider this your differentiator factor from your other similar solution providers?
100%. The ability to act per an event, to add the business context, to add workflows and granularity into it,
yes.
and to close the loop with empowering the users, interacting with them, and doing full remediation. There is no solution that is capable of doing that today. There are different solutions that can give you like different spotlights on different areas in your SaaS environment, but to have an A to Z solution that closes the loop for you and that does not hurt the business enablement, that's something which is very, very unique. Obviously, there are companies out there that they need, because of regulatory reasons, they need to have an agent. We will not work with those companies just because we're not an agent base. We're an API base.
No, that's even wonderful. That takes away the requirement to have or install an agent, right, on the first place.
Yeah.
That makes it more secure, I would say, still, again, right?
Yeah, but it's like different kind of companies. Whether if you're a huge conglomerate that you've been in business for 80 years or whatever, and you're used to work with something. But again, our go-to market, as Matt mentioned earlier today, we are really focused on cloud native companies that were born into the cloud in the last 15 years, or did a massive transition from on-prem to the cloud, and they're adopting SaaS heavily. If you ask me, if you're talking a year from now, if you're talking 5 years from now or 10 years from now, the diagram is going to go like this. 100%. It's not going to go like this.
Yeah.
So this is the on-prem like this. This is the cloud like this. And we're building for the future. For the present, we're selling for the present, but we're also building for the future.
Building for the future. True. Yeah. I mean, everybody wants the green. It also comes into the sustainability aspect of it. Go green environment, right? Less labs, more green, more cloud. So of course, I'm a biggest evangelist for that. So yes, indeed. No, wonderful. That's wonderful. And I think You cannot prevent having those companies into this business landscape, the SaaS overexposure of the data, right? It's inevitable, I would say. So that is where the security is required, which you are trying to provide.
I think we have something planned, I think, for later this call about like ROI and how we can, show companies their exposure without even interacting with them, just to give them a glimpse about what's happening in the environment. We'll get to that. But I think, Matt, maybe you can go over and show some more examples about this. Was one example, but I think it's the eye. It's much better to see it than to hear it.
I was just about to say, Matt looks like he's like, my screen, my turn. Like,
no, I would tell a good story there, but yeah, we can dive into the second use case here. So Slack is, obviously very highly adopted across a lot of companies today. People are sending hundreds, thousands of messages a day, whether that be private messages between Omri and I messaging about something, or messaging with customers, messaging with partners, messaging with prospects, messaging with external vendors. Slack is basically what one of my teammates likes to call it. It's a clipboard of a lot of your sensitive data today. People don't think about Slack that way because it's a collaboration tool, but they don't often think about what is shared across Slack and is it actually properly secured. Are you sharing passcodes and bank account information in public Slack channels where anyone could get access to that? That's a huge risk, and I think it's as Slack becomes, it already is highly adopted, but continues to become more highly adopted, the risk only becomes higher and higher. So, for example, we can kind of click through here is DoControl can start to scan for what we call PII. I think everyone knows what PII information is within Slack. So whether that be at the message level. So as I said, a bank account card information, password information, or at the file level. So if you attach a file, you're sending a file over Slack, same concept. We can scan both at that individual message level or at that file level. And we can scan across a public channel, a private message, whatever it be. We can scan across all those different levels. You hit next here. Great. You can say, we're going to start to enable the business. This is where you enable the business and say, you shared a sensitive asset over Slack. Did you mean to do this? This is when you start to enable your business on how to properly share SaaS data. I think as Omri said earlier, if I'm the 50-person security company and the 9,001st employee share something, I'm not going to know why or how they did that. But we still need to have a process in place to protect that, one. But two, it's very important to start to teach the business around how to properly share SaaS data. There are lots of tools out there around email security and email training security and a lot of other security layers. But SaaS is kind of a newer breed. There hasn't been a program in place of how to enable your users on what's the proper way to share SaaS. DoControl does that in an automated way in meeting the users where they're at. So whether that be in Slack, obviously, we're protecting Slack here, so we're going to send the messages in Slack, but you can do this over email as well.
That's wonderful.
And then based on that employee's response, we can then remediate or take an action. So we can say, and we can restore the message, and or, if I went back, we can then also delete the message. So if I can go back here, we can also delete the message, and or we can quarantine the message. You can see kind of the triggers of all the different steps that are happening here.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. You can delete that message. It was not to be sent.
Yes, we can go and delete the message. That if
nice.
They say no, that was not supposed to be sent.
Nice.
Then we can go and delete that message immediately.
And
no,
so
that's real remediation. Great.
Yeah. And so for this screen right here, is this like can you build like a no code like workflow kind of this, or can you explain what exactly we're looking at here?
Yeah, good question. So our workflows are fully based off a trigger. So as you said, They are no code workflows. It's all drag and drop functionality, but it's always based off a trigger. No different than every kind of most SaaS vendor based workflows. That something has to happen. So this scenario is a Slack message by the finance team. Once that trigger happens, then we can start to connect the dots between what's happening within that digital asset. So for this example, is we're scanning for PII, and this is we're starting to understand. Great, is there PII contained in this document? And this is actually the Google scenario. Let's see if I can find that Slack scenario again. So here we go. Scanning for PII. If it contains PII, we can then do an if-then statement and say, all right, if it does contain PII, let's do another trigger. Let's do another layer of identifying this risk. Is this employee leaving? And that's where Omri comes in and said, we talked about how we integrate with, the HR tools, the IDP tools to get better business context into who that user is at the organization. So we can start to understand, is this a person, a leaving employee? Are they maybe on a RIF list, on a PIP plan, someone that maybe is at risk, that proposes a higher risk to the business of why they would send a sensitive asset over Slack or maybe over Google. Once that trigger happens, then we can do an if then statement. So if this is a leaving employee, great. Well, we can just delete that message immediately. Like we don't want to have another layer. We just automatically want to delete that message. If it is a leaving employee, then we can quarantine that message. We can then quarantine that message, and we can send to what I said earlier, that approval step to say in that message that say, hey, do you approve or deny this different message? Do you say, hey, I meant to share this. This is a message. This is an asset that I wanted to share Slack. Or you say no. You say, no, actually, I didn't mean to do that at all. And that's where we go and delete that message. But if you say, great, okay, I wanted to share that, fine, we'll let you go down that trigger path and we'll say, share that, but maybe we'll come back in 30 days and say, hey, should you still have access to that? Or we can also just alert the security team to give them a heads up saying, hey, we went down this path of the workflow. This is not a leaving employee, but it contains PII. They said it's okay. Here's a heads up, and they can then make a decision on that. So that's kind of from this workflow perspective, the path that went down. But you can see there's, it's all drag and drop, no code, but you can make it as customized or as detailed as your business needs to.
That's
Nice.
another aspect which needs to be mentioned, that it's no code, drag and drop. But look how great and granularity, the level of granularity here for the filters. Like if this person or employee is leaving, no, yes, I love it. Yes, without coding. That's great.
It can even get more crazier than that. This is like at the very basic, but you can really get into the macros and add enrich the data and send stuff to your SIEM and add other components to it. We have 100 something baked templates that you can start right away.
Wonderful.
And those are, if you think about it, a company that is based out of Sweden, or a company that is based out of New York, or a company that is based out of San Francisco. Very different verticals, right?
True.
1,000, 5,000, 10,000. They all have SaaS application and they have use cases that they want to solve. But once a company is starting to bake their own workflow, we can upload it to them like a marketplace, basically, and another company can leverage that because in most cases, maybe they have the same problem that they want to solve. So think about it like the network effect, that kind of thing. Because in most cases, all companies are sharing the same problems constantly, I think, I'm sorry. And they're trying to achieve the same thing, to drive the business, not to stop it, but at the same time to have the guardrails that can alert and then can remediate the exposure.
Yeah, you preempted my question. My question was going to be about managed rules or templates or whatever, or things like that. You preempted me on that. And then I'm sure, of course, you can customize, say you have a template like this, but then there's extra stuff that maybe is specific to my company that's not necessarily PII in the greater, in the, I don't know what the textbook definition of it, but maybe for my company, I need to be very secure about these specific things, and I can add those in to customize it as well, I'm sure, right?
100%. If you look at that screen, you see this chart. We have customers that have an amazing Picasso pictures art. They can sell it as NFTs in the future because it has so many cycles and so many squares and diagrams, whatever, that it can be so complicated you cannot imagine, because the level of flexibility that we allow, it's unparalleled to what's out there today. Because if you take traditional tools, in most cases they have some templates, but it's pre-opinionated templates. It means that this is the template that we have, use it or not.
Yeah.
And that's very limiting, right?
And then you also mentioned Switzerland, San Francisco, et cetera, et cetera. Say I want to do, every country or, wherever might have different definitions of those specific PII and Oh God, it escapes me. The European credit one. Yeah. GDPR. Can you like kind of integrate those rules as well that are specific to different, governances or compliances?
I came back. I was in San Francisco yesterday, and I had meetings like with 10 prospects in one room talking about our solution and so on. And one lady came up to me and say, "Hey, we are a global company. We have 120 different locations."
Yeah.
I told her, okay, and then she said, "Yeah, but everyone is different." And but I told her, okay, then, but everybody lives in the cloud. She said, "Yes, everybody." And I think she said they're using Google Drive, whatever. Are they under the same umbrella, same company, same instance? Yeah, that's not a problem. We like a Swiss Army knife, right? We can build the template that is very specific to a user group from a specific geo, or from a user group from a specific site. It doesn't really matter. This is the beauty of DoControl, because once you have a big company, you have different entities within the company, maybe subdivision, maybe a company that bought another company and you wanted to treat them differently. Because everything is in the cloud, we are able to do this flexibility, which is unparalleled and can fit any site, department, team, or even a single persona. You can do everything for the company beside one person, and for him to do everything else. That's the beauty of DoControl.
So that's how flexible it is. Like you
Yes.
have completely free hand for a user to come in with the single persona or from the whole suite base, right?
100%, yes.
Omri, where can our audience or us can get those baked templates?
So basically, the baked templates, you need to register to DoControl. You need to start an account, work with us. We need to validate that you are a legit company. Okay. You have those problems, because we are able to give a free trial to every company out there. And we sponsor the compute power at the first 2 weeks, because we are so confident of us giving value for our customers.
Very nice.
And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but every customer that started a POV with us, I think we managed to keep him with us for a contract, unless there's something tragic happened, because we are able to show value to customers from the first hour, basically, because once we are connected, basically we start getting all of those events, and we're starting to build the inventory, and suddenly customers are seeing a lot of information that they were never exposed in the past. Because if they're in Google or Microsoft or Zoom or Slack, maybe they have all the logs behind the scenes, or they get some events to their SIM, but it's not the raw content, the metadata, the business context, the exposure analysis that we bring and give them. And that's something which is an eye-opener for them. So it's all about, DoControl. You can reach me, to Matt, or through our site, and we'll be happy to walk them through and talk about how we can help them get a better or a more secured SaaS ecosystem. And I think what another thing that we can do is, and I mentioned that a little bit earlier, about the ROI, right? So I think, Matt, if you want to jump to a tab where we can show an ROI, and maybe we can ask the audience here to participate, because we have a way to it's not guesstimate, because it's a very good estimation because of our database. What's the exposure of a company according to their the employee count, basically? How do we know that? Again, we are monitoring millions of domains today, millions, and like hundreds of thousands of email addresses from like hundreds of companies. And then it's like statistics. It's like it's a numbers game, right? And usually, if company X, Y, and Z have the same numbers, so the next company following that will have the same stats as well. So maybe we can ask someone, or maybe you, Sarah, James, pick a number from 1,000 to 10,000. Here, 72,000 employees. Matt.
Yeah, let's do that.
$11 million external asset exposed. Sure. Wow.
And that's across your different SaaS application, obviously. And assumingly that your company is not completely locked down, because if your company is completely locked down, obviously that's not the case. But in most cases, when companies do open and do business, that's a number, right? Those are the numbers. It might look crazy, but we are a small company. We are 60 employees, and we have an enormous amount of exposure that we constantly monitor and remediate on our behalf, because this is how our employees are doing their business, basically.
So this is your way of showing the prospect to the companies who are interested to work with you, right?
Yes, and we tell them this is the amount of exposure that you have now without even connecting to DoControl. And what the funny thing is, what happens in real time after they're connecting to DoControl, our numbers are even lower than reality, because we try to even be more cautious with our estimations.
Setting the right
So if you think about it, on average, roughly, there's around 17 to 1,800 SaaS assets per an employee at an organization. And once you start to like quickly do the math in your head, you're like, oh, how many Google Drive or OneDrive assets did I create today? How many Salesforce reports do I have? How many Slack messages did I send today? You think about how that adds up so quickly. You're like, oh, that number seems huge. But then you start to quickly do the math. You're like, oh, okay, that number's maybe even less than what in reality. And then how this is calculated is, there's a, as Omri said, within our, understanding our customer base and understanding our prospects, we can start to give percentages on out of your total assets, how many are publicly exposed or externally exposed or creating kitchen keys. So it's roughly around, I think, 8 or 9% for public exposure, around 10, 11% for external exposure. And kitchen keys, I think, is around 2 to 3%. So you can already understand around, like, let's say on average, 10% of your just SaaS assets are exposed without you maybe not even taking that action. And second to that, you can start to see, and this is the total assets of that organization, of a 72,000 person organization, how do those assets grow over time? So assets are, SaaS is growing, SaaS assets are growing daily. It's not like you create a Google Drive file and then, or a Salesforce report, and then you're like, actually, I'm going to create a new one tomorrow, and then I'm going to go back and delete the one I created yesterday, so my number is static. It's not how it works. Everyone's creating new assets on a daily basis to drive the business. But what does that mean? The more your assets you're creating, the more risk that creates. So
it grows exponentially, 20% month over month. Think about it.
Oh, I believe it.
20% month over month.
And that's with like a flat employee count. Think about if you your employees are growing month over month too. So on top of that, this is obviously probably even more of a drastic increase month over month. And then the bottom part here starts to give you, this is a kind of granular exposure into different types. So executive leadership exposure, former employee exposure, kind of just granular numbers out of this public and asset. But the bottom here really starts to tell you, with DoControl or it's an API based, SaaS security platform approach, what are you actually getting out of it? So if you were to say, okay, I shared a file publicly and I was a security person, and I had to go to manually remediate or manually monitor all this different exposure. One, how would I even get visibility into all that different exposure? But two, if I were to go to manually do that, how long would that take me? So on average, we see it takes like 2 to 3 minutes just to remediate one asset. So if you start to do that at scale across thousands of assets, you obviously start to quickly get the math of, wow, that's going to, one, that costs me a crazy amount of operational costs in hours of just man hours that, one, could be spent on other areas when it can automate this with the tool. But two, obviously manual remediation leaves risk in itself, where you have human error at that point on top of the human error that's happening of that risk. So yeah, this is a tool that we have on our website. It's totally free. You can click into it, start to understand, get a high level understanding of your threat landscape. And it's something that we talk with our prospects early on, so they can start to visualize, what their potential risk is, and what their potential SaaS exposure is.
But again, I've been doing it for quite some time, and every time we do this assessment, and then we go live with a POV, and then hopefully, they become a client of ours, we always fall short a little bit with our exposure. We always are trying to be more moderate with the reality. And Matt mentioned earlier about the manual time that it takes to actually remediate and investigate and so on. But if you think about it, what about all the time that we can save with our automation and DoBot when employee is trying to do something, and then he opens a ticket, and then you have a Jira ticket or a Zendesk or ServiceNow, and then the IT needs to approve it, and then you have 2-3 days that went by, and then he didn't understand the request, and then boom, and now multiplied by thousands of employees, you lose productivity. This productivity, it's in our formula. And even if you lose 0.0001 productivity, it adds up to a lot of money. And what about the data breaches or the exposure that you have that someone will, God forbid, will take ownership of some of the asset and will start doing ransomware? We didn't invent that number, but according to IBM, a cost of a data breach per asset, it's $165. Now multiply the amount of assets that you have. Think about the data breaches that we can save you. So we never try to intimidate or see it planned for fear across our audience, but it's something that people should know, and you want to avoid that as much as possible.
Oh wow, wonderful! If I have to admit that I have become your customer. If I wasn't with AWS to get convinced. I mean, it's pretty solid, clear, and then you are talking about the real data. Hey, no gimmicks here. What I'm feeling it strongly. So I would encourage everybody who's watching, do go ahead and try this threat report. It's free and it's given wonderful insights, and I think that is the main reason why the companies have this considerable overexposure of SaaS data, right? Because the building up, and I think we all are guilty of it, deleting the previous asset and building new one is what is causing this, right? So yeah.
And I think one final note that we haven't mentioned yet is something called shadow apps. So you think about applications integrated with your other SaaS applications that may not be approved or visibility to security teams. So for example, I'm a sales rep. I found this cool new tool that allows me to download all these like random contacts I found on this website. And I go to integrate it with my Salesforce and with my Google Calendar. But now it has read-write access to my Salesforce environment and my Google Calendar environment. And no one has any idea about that. Exactly. So we're able to also give you, that same level of visibility, alerting, and remediation into those what we call shadow apps. So those are also huge risky organizations, specifically today when there's a lot of free trials, a lot of free applications that people can go and use. But especially if they have read-write access to, let's say, something like Salesforce or Slack, when there's a lot of sensitive data in there and that stuff gets overwritten, that stuff gets exposed, that also poses a huge risk to the organization as well. So something that we use the word shadow apps to kind of similar to kind of a functionality within shadow IT to solve that challenge. So that's something we haven't mentioned yet, but it's also included in this calculation of how many shadow apps does your organization have. And for example, this is I think I did 5,000 employees. A 5,000 person company is roughly going to have around 3,500 shadow apps in general, but around 300 like risky shadow apps where we risk score each application based off the permissions they have, where it came from, who's it integrated with, do they have read-write access, all those different things to make a decision on if it's risky. But those also pose a substantial risk to your business outside of just, let's say, the digital assets piece as well.
No, that's wonderful. So this is the way, this is a brilliant way of setting up the prospect and also showing the ROI matrix, right? Nice. And I think we talked about the bulk remediation earlier, how you were showing the actual demo of retrieving those accounts. So
yeah.
James, if you have any questions for them.
My question was going to be, what's kind of the roadmap for 2024? What's kind of on the horizon for DoControl? What are we working on as our next feature, our next thing?
Yeah, so we have some very exciting stuff that are coming up. I think one of the most exciting stuff that we have is around Salesforce. We have some good offering around Salesforce, but Salesforce is like a never-ending story. It's such a complicated environment that, Matt talked about shadow apps, but think about how many shadow apps are within Salesforce and how people are manipulating and downloading the data. And it's like, and you have different environments. So we're building a lot around that, and it's going to be very fascinating. We just released our Slack Enterprise or Grid solution. So what Matt showed you, basically, we are humble and very proud to be like among 15 companies out there in the world today that are an official partner of Slack, TLP.
Oh, nice.
So it took us some time, but it puts us next to the big names like Symantec and FireEye and other big players. And then you have like the small DoControl that is doing those things as well. So I'm very proud of that. And we're starting to roll out it dramatically, and a lot of use cases around the automation and the use cases when it comes to scheduled offboarding of employees from specific documents or different data assets, and some very exciting stuff that we're going to plan moving forward. It's every day is a new day, and every day we find something new from one of our customers, or talking to some of the prospects that they have different use cases that they want to solve. I wish we could have all the manpower in the world to solve everything, but we need to be very precise about what we talk, what we do, how we solve, how we build, and who do we approach, who can we help in the short term. And that really help us be very laser focused about our mission. To first is to educate the market about the problem that is out there. A lot of folks think that they don't have a problem, and I don't know if they are blind to the problem, or they're just putting their hand in the sand, or they think that some of the solutions are solving what they do want to solve today. But there is a big problem, and it's just a matter of time when it's already happening. We see a lot of things are happening in SaaS, and a lot of threats and like breaches, or like or whatever, those kind of things are happening. But it's going to be bigger and bigger and bigger, and the SaaS ecosystem is becoming the number one attack surface for companies. And you have a lot of sensitive data that is being stored there. And if you think about it, the one thing that is important for all, or people are trying to protect, or people are trying to steal, is your data. So just make sure that you protect it in the right way.
Yeah, like I said before, data. I think James would remember. I don't know, coincidentally.
I always quote you.
Yeah. That data is the new oil.
That is the new oil.
Something funny came up to my mind. I had to mention that. I read it somewhere when you said that. Exactly. Mostly people, including I'm guilty of it, being blinded of the fact that how vulnerable our data is. And there was a joke said that the company's budget for security increases after one attack. So don't let that happen, folks. Right? I mean, leverage this great opportunity. It's serverless, so it's all directly sending this message to the audience and viewers here. So yeah, I agree with you, Omri. It's very easy to get blinded, and then this prospect was kind of an eye opener. Very, very well designed to set the tone right.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
One of the things I always mention in addition to that, and you hit it on the head, we always say there's known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. And the unknown unknowns are the ones that are the most dangerous, because you don't even know they're going to hit you. And this is DoControl is one of the tools that's going to help you combat those unknown unknowns before you even hit. What is the other saying for the IT department? When everything's going perfect, what do we pay you guys for? And then when everything falls apart, you get yelled at. What do we pay you guys for?
You can't win this.
Yeah. Awesome. So I guess if there's nothing else, we can talk about. Is DoControl going to be at any like conferences or summits? We mentioned earlier offline, we were talking about Reinforce, and I think it was RSA, for example, later this year.
Yeah, I can talk about this. So we'll definitely be at Reinforce. We're still figuring out our presence there, so stay tuned for that. We will be at RSA. We'll have a meeting room. We'll have a space. So definitely feel free to reach out to our team. If you want to meet, we'll have we'll have coffee, drinks. We'll have our full team. I think Aamir will be there, our team. And we'll also be at some of the local events. We'll be at the New York City Summit, walking around.
Oh, nice.
The team. Happy to have lunch, meet for coffee for any of those different team members. Aamir, what else am I missing there for any of the events?
No, I think, you mentioned some of the big ones. Obviously, we're going to be like in some of the locals events, and we have our own private events that we're doing with some of our customers. And, we have like a room gathered with like professionals talking about, security issues, problems, very, very, very hectic.
Kind of roundtable discussion sounds like it, right? More intimate and more one-to-one. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. Cool. And I guess what I always say, very last thing before, is there anything you would like to plug? Maybe, Omri, you should do a magnet Instagram. Like you could have your own or magnet TikTok. That'd be kind of cool. Is there anything that you would like to personally just plug real fast? Put you on the spot. You can say no.
No, I can. You know, at the end of the day, we're talking about business and security, and I think that, you know, if I don't know how many of you are reading the news, or I'm not, you know, or seeing what's happening. I think, you know, just be kind to each other. Take everything in proportion. You know, it's just business. It's what we do now. It's not life or death. And I think, you know, people need to be patient to each other, and listen to each other, and be kind to each other, regardless of everything that we do, because life is bigger than everything that we do.
Yeah, 100%. Wonderful. Lovely message. Thank you.
Yeah, that was good. That was a lot deeper than expected.
I have nothing to add to that. That's a good. Those are wise words.
Awesome.
And by DoControl. No,
by DoControl.
No.
Oh yeah, certainly. After that, it should be the right way to put it, right? If you love your loved ones, buy the security DoControl. To conclude the message. Yeah, wonderfully said.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, thank you all for coming. Of course, this would not be an AWS show or AWS thing without a survey. I put the banner at the bottom. I've dropped it in the chat. Please, anyone out there, please it's a short survey. I promise it'll take you like 30 seconds. Take our survey real quick. Let us know what you liked. Let us know how you liked us as presenters. Let us know what you want to see more of on the show. Obviously, the more stuff that we get that you want to see, hopefully the more you'll tune in. And again, we're here every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Next week, I believe we are going to have Rancher Government. Rancher is going to be on with us again. They were on with us last year. So please tune in for that. And with that, please take the survey. And thank you to DoControl and everyone out there. We will catch you next time.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody.
Take care.
All right. Have a great day.
Have a great day.